Greetings, film fanatics. Filmholmes here, and welcome to another rendition of Too Many Movies. Okay, so there is a certain sequel coming out that a lot of people are either really excited about or really not. And I'm neither. I don't care. Because I didn't see the first one. I actually refused to see the first one. And I did it before it was stylish to refuse to watch a movie. Before James Rolfe got shit all over for refusing to see the new Ghostbusters, which I'm going to go ahead and say any hatred going towards him about his thoughts on why not to see the new Ghostbusters movie is complete and utter horseshit. He's not a woman hater. Him not seeing the movie has nothing to do with the Ghostbusters cast being all women. Like, I was very excited about it being all women. The problem is the trailers make it look like a big piece of shit. And it's probably going to be a big piece of shit. Not because they're women, but because it was a badly made film. So go watch his video if you haven't seen it, because that's all he says. And he says it much more articulate than I just did. So anyway, I refuse to see Michael Bay's reinterpretation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I knew it was going to be a big piece of shit. And from all the reviews I've seen and from few people I've talked to, it was a big heaping pile of shit. Entertaining in some parts, but a big heaping pile of shit. Because it's Michael Bay. It's Michael fucking Bay. And I enjoy some Michael Bay stuff. I do. I have guilty pleasures, and I do enjoy some of his work. Some of which I'll probably review eventually. But I saw the trailers, and I don't like the Turtles being CG. I'm so sick of. They think they have to CG everything. Did you not see the original 3? People despise Turtles 3, but at least, even though the costumes for the Turtles were downgraded quite a bit, at least they were actual suits. They look more realistic than the CG bullcrap that you had in that. All right. So anyway, I didn't see it. You know, I've seen plenty of reviews. I know what the whole movie is about. Some of the changes they made, I think, are okay. Like April knowing the Turtles from when she was a little girl. I thought that was an interesting change to the TMNT lore. Not necessary, but fine. Also not a fan of Megan Fox. Don't think she's attractive. Don't care to see her in anything. She's not that good of an actress. Her as April O'Neil doesn't click. I'm sure I'll get some hate for that. But anyway, I didn't see it. And I still don't want to see it. If you guys want me to watch it, just so you can watch me shit all over it, or be pleasantly surprised, just let me know in the comments below, alright? But for now, I haven't seen it. And the sequel was coming out, and I saw the trailers, and even though it still suffers from a lot of the crap from the first one, it's cool to see Bebop and Rocksteady. It's great that they're doing Krang finally in a TMNT live-action movie, or some live-action, mainly CG movie. But that's cool that they're finally doing that. And it's possible this sequel, even though it's not going to be a masterpiece, could be a lot better than the first one. And if I hear enough good stuff about it, I may actually want to see it. But that one is coming out in a few days, and I do look forward to see the critics' reviews and what audiences think. But what a lot of you probably don't know is that I have been a huge TMNT fanatic since I was a young boy. I loved the cartoon series growing up. I loved some of the movies growing up. I had a buttload of the action figures that I still wish that I had. I don't have the TMNT movie poster of the first one, but the first movie, well, I'll get to that. But I still have a TMNT poster in my room, and I'll show that here in a second. There you go. You know, I have action figures and stuff around my apartment. I love the Turtles. I even have Turtles boxers, which is probably TMI. I have like 3 pairs of those that I wear with pride. And yeah, I love I love them. For such a stupid idea, it keeps evolving. And that's why I don't care about the Michael Bay movies, that he's doing them. It's just another interpretation of the Turtles, and that's fine. You know, not every interpretation has been perfect. The original TV series was far from perfect. It was entertaining. The one in the 2000s I thought was really good, and I wish I could get it on DVD, but it's expensive now. But that was really good. The newer version, I've never seen it, but I like that the idea is still going. I hope one day that I can show my kids, you know, I can introduce them to Turtles, and maybe they'll get into it. You know, it keeps going and going, like Superman or Batman. But today, in preparation for the new one coming out, which, like I said, I won't see it unless I just become that curious, but I have seen the original Turtles trilogy, and then the fourth movie, the fourth animated movie. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Since the new one is coming out, I want to give my thoughts on these movies because I love talking about some Turtles. So, cowabunga, let's do this. Okay, the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie came out in 1990, and it's such a nostalgic movie for me. I'm 30 now. At the time, I was only 4, so I didn't see this movie until a few years later. But watching it now, it was the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, and you can tell that. The movie makes you feel like you've been transported back to the end of the 80s and beginning of the 90s. It's awesome, and I love that. It gives you that nostalgic feel. But besides that, it is a great representation of the Turtles. They got a lot of stuff right, and they actually took a lot from the original comics. And I have the first volume of those comics. I haven't read them yet, but from what I've seen, they stayed pretty true to it. They really did. And you really feel like, you know, because of the costumes, I still want to know how they did these costumes for the Turtles movies, for the first 3, or mainly the first one, because they're so good, they're so realistic, and you really believe that it's Leonardo, Raphael, Michelangelo, Donatello, even Splinter. You really believe it's the 4 of them. That's how good these costumes are. And the voices were pitch perfect. And the banter back and forth is hilarious. It reminded me a lot of the cartoon series, but more adult. It's dark. They curse. The fighting got me pumped up. It gets me pumped up even watching it now. And the movie flows really well. It's edited well. It's shot really well. It highlights New York City, and even the parts that's a soundstage, it still feels like New York City somehow. Shredder looks badass, and the Foot Clan soldiers look great. April, I like the first April. She's still my favorite one. She captured what April was, or is, but she was even tougher than she was in the cartoon. She was tough, but this one was a little bit grittier, you know. And she wasn't so much about the story, you know. She befriended the Turtles. They were like her brothers in a way, and I really like her in the movie, and she didn't have to have boobs out to here, which would have been nice. But as a kid, I didn't care about that yet. But anyway, the story, it stays true to the comics in a lot of ways. They make changes when necessary. It's entertaining as hell. It's still one of my all-time favorite movies. And I know that's kind of dumb because I'm kind of a film snob, but it is. And I don't call it a guilty pleasure movie because it's still a good movie. It's a weird fucking idea, but it's still a great movie. And it ends on a great note, on a triumphant note, and Splinter gets the last word in, and a joke, and the great 90s soundtrack, and I have it on my phone, actually. It's it's so good. And I could watch it any day of the week. It's still one of my favorites, to the point I want the movie poster. I just don't have any more room for movie posters, but when I do, that's going to be one of the first ones that I buy because I love it that damn much. And I think a lot of people do. It was actually the highest grossing independent movie until Pulp Fiction a couple years later. Think about that. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was the highest grossing independent movie of all time for like 4 years. It made over $200 million. That's how big Turtles was back then, folks. It's incredible to think that this movie that nobody wanted to make grossed over $200 million. And $200 million back then was not normal. Like, we're used to all these movies making over $1 billion worldwide. $1 billion back then No, like the highest grossing movies did like 500 million, 600 million. If you did that, you made one of the greatest movies of all time, or one of the most entertaining. And this movie made 200 million? It still blows my mind. But if you haven't seen it and you're a Turtles fan, please watch it. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. 4.5 out of 5 is my rating. Honestly, I still think that highly of it. Maybe I'm biased because I'm such a Turtles fanatic. If it's too weird of an idea for you, you're not going to want to watch it. You're not going to get it. And that's fine. But give it a try if you haven't. Especially if you're around my age, because it's so nostalgic. It brings you back into the 90s. But also, you love every Turtle. You love Splinter. Shredder's a badass. You love April. It's a well-paced story. The action will get you excited. I could go on about it forever, but let's move on to the highly anticipated sequel. All right, TMNT 2 Secret of the Ooze. I'll go ahead and say this. This seems to be like everyone's favorite Turtle movie, or at least was for a long time. In my group of friends, it was everyone's favorite Turtles movie, and I hadn't seen it. I owned the first one on VHS and the third one on VHS, so those were the two that I knew. I finally saw the second one at a friend's house, and I had to be like, yeah, that was the best one, when even back then I knew it wasn't. It wasn't as well written. The Turtles were goofier, which, that's fine. If the first one, it didn't match the tone of the first one. The first one was dark and kind of mysterious in a way, and this one was a lot more like the cartoon. If the first one would have been more like the cartoon, fine, but the tone didn't match, and it bothered me, because it's like, you're going to treat me as an adult, but then you're going to treat me as a child. Like, if I want to be treated as a child, I'll watch the cartoon, which I still was. Treat me as a fucking adult. I want to be treated as an adult again. And they barely use their weapons. That's a huge criticism of the movie, because they want to tone down the violence. It's 6-foot-tall turtles fighting. You think kids are going to take it that seriously? But Shredder came back. Don't know how the hell. I still don't get that. Krang wasn't in it, which I was hoping for really bad. No aliens, no nothing, which fine. Toka and Razar, whatever. But I don't like the story as much. I don't like the movie as much. I really don't. Like, it is entertaining. To me, if I like this would be a guilty pleasure movie. The first one I think is a good movie. This one I don't. I think it's a crappy sequel. Not horrible, but not good. And the Super Shredder thing, that was disappointing. That lasted all of 5 seconds. I mean, them trying to find out what happened to them and with this ooze, that was a cool story, and I like that. But it was, and the little delivery kid who, like, basically became like a fifth turtle, fuck that kid. I hate that kid. I don't want him in the movie. I don't care if he can do kung fu. I don't care, okay? Get out of my fucking Turtles movie, okay? Get out. I still hate that guy. But yeah, I'm not a fan of the second one. I'm still not. I wasn't as a kid, and I'm not now. But now I'm 30, and I do this kind of crap, and I can say whatever the hell I want. I don't try to impress any of my friends. So TMNT 2 Secret of the Ooze, I give, honestly, 2.5 out of 5. It probably deserves maybe a 3. Not for me. Okay? And now let's talk about the most hated Turtles movie. Turtles 3, which, it's funny, like on the Blu-ray of this, it actually calls it Turtles in Time. And it's basically being called that. And when I was a kid, I called it Turtles in Time because of my affinity for the video game. But it made sense. They go back in time! So, it should have been called that. Why do you go from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, TMNT 2 Secret of the Ooze, and then Turtles 3? It's like how they did the Rambo movies. Like, why do you have to remove, why do you have to just call it Turtles 3? Why not give it another, like, TMNT 3, Turtles in Time? Give it something. But whatever. A lot of you are going to hate me for this, but remember, I was a kid. As a kid, I loved this movie. I loved it. I really did. I was still fairly young when I saw it. I had the action figures for the movie. I freaking loved it. I really, really did. And that hurts to say. It really does. And the thing is, I still don't have a complete and utter hatred for this movie. I don't. It's bad. It is bad. It is horrific, cheesy writing. The story is stupid. Why do you have to send the Turtles back in time? There's no Shredder, there's no Krang, there's no Bebop and Rocksteady, there's not even Token Razar. Nothing. There's no Foot Clan, nothing. They go back to fight these generic pieces of shit. And yeah, I don't like that. Now, seeing the Turtles in ancient Japan was kind of cool, and they shot ancient Japan as well as they could. But it's a poorly put together movie. The turtle suits look like shit. You never see Splinter more from the waist up. I don't think they finished him. Casey Jones came back. He was one of my favorite parts of the first one. He was gone in the second, which I didn't say that in the last part. What the fuck was with that? But he was in the third one, but he didn't do anything. He didn't really even fight. And the supporting characters in Ancient Japan, I didn't like him. I didn't like April. I didn't like anybody. So yeah, I don't like the movie. It's a piece of shit. But at the same time, I still love the movie because it's so nostalgic. This is the one I watched the most. I watched it even more than the first one. I think just because it was such a simple movie, it didn't make me think. And now, yeah, I hate it. I despise it, but I still have a love for it. But it's god-awful. It killed the TMNT franchise, movie-wise, for a very long time. So, Turtles 3, 1.5 out of 5. I do find some of it entertaining, most of it cringeworthy nowadays, but I still have a love for it because it kept me entertained a lot as a kid. And now let's move on to, technically it is the fourth film in this series, because it does take place after Turtles 3. But it's the animated version, the only big screen animated version of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Here we go. I do wish they would have called this Turtles 4, and not just TMNT, but whatever. I was fine with that title. And the animation is fine. I thought it matched what the movie was, but I actually went to go see this in theaters. I was excited about a new Turtles reboot. I was too old to be excited about that, but I was excited to see a new interpretation of it. I figured it'd be a lot like the show that was out at the time, but it wasn't. It was very different, and I think they actually should have gone more with what the show was. The show was more adult than this movie was. But I knew it was going to take place after the 3 movies. I like that. And the story isn't great. It's not perfect. But it gets the job done. And there's some funny dialogue, and there is some chemistry between the Turtles still and Splinter. And the bad guy is fine. Like, the fight scenes are good. I like the split between Raphael and Leonardo. I do like that. It makes sense. It's kind of where I wanted to see the movies go. I like that, and I actually enjoyed the movie quite a bit. It's not the greatest interpretation, and it's one I do need to see again. I haven't seen it for a while, but I remembered enough of it to comment on it. But there's really not much more I can say without watching it. I could watch it again, and I could hate it. I could hate it. And one day I will, because I need to. I've only seen it a couple times, but the overall story, I didn't get bored. I liked the ending of the movie, and it was setting up for a sequel that unfortunately we never got because this wasn't really that huge of a hit. And honestly, I can see why. I really do. But TMNT, 3 out of 5. I might rate it higher, I might rate it lower if I watched it recently, but unfortunately I didn't have time. But from what I remember, that's about my feeling towards it. It's average at best. So there you go. My thoughts on all 4 TMNT movies before the Michael Bay movies. And like I said, if you want me to watch the first one ever, comment, let me know. I'll get a copy of it and I will watch it. And I'll even go see the new one in theaters if enough people want me to. And I'm not stupid to think that I have millions of subscribers, but if I get enough people wanting me to, I will gladly do it because I like seeing every movie, even if it's bad. And honestly, these videos are a lot more entertaining if it's bad than if it's good. So, you know, we'll see. But I have a love for the Turtles franchise. I love the Turtles. They're close to my heart. They were the biggest part of my childhood, and I'm glad it's an idea that's still going, even though it's still one of the weirdest ideas that ever caught on in this world. But you know what? I'm okay with that because turtle power. I got nothing else, just turtle power.